Hello? Naririnig po ba ako? Dapat ko pa po bang lakasan yung mic or okay na po? Okay. So if ever magkaroon ng technical difficulties later, chat na lang. Ayan, hello po. Okay na po. We'll start at exactly 4:05. Okay na po. Start at exactly 4:05. Okay na po. Okay, so maybe we can start now. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mathematics Day 1. I hope that everyone can participate in our discussion for today. So you can use the chat box to recite whenever I ask questions. And I hope na lahat magpa-participate soon. Here are some infos about me. I am Serene Carvida. You can call me Se, Ayn, or Ayn. I am an incoming grade 12 ABM student at Ramon Magsaysay Cubao High School, and I am 16 years old. So, for today's lesson, we'll be focusing on fractions and decimals. So, first, let's define fractions. So, uh, fractions represent the parts of a whole or collection of objects. A fraction has two parts. The number on the top of the line is called the numerator. It tells how many equal parts of the whole or collection are taken. The number below the line is called the denominator. It shows the total number of equal parts the whole is divided into, or the total number of the same objects in a collection. So, can you give me an example of a fraction? Can anyone give me an example po? You can chat down. All right. 1/2, 1/4, 3/4. Okay. So thank you, everyone. So here are more examples. So 1/4, 9/3, 421 over 63, 1421 over 9, and 7 over 1314. So next, now let's define decimals. Decimals are a set of numbers lying between integers on a number line. They are just another way to represent fractions in mathematics. With the help of decimals, we can write more precise values of measurable quantities like length, weight, distance, money, and etc. The numbers to the left of the decimal point are the integers or whole numbers, and the numbers on the right of the decimal point are decimal fractions. So can anyone give me an example of a decimal? Chat lang po ulit. Ayan, 2.5, 2.1, 0.1, 0.275, 3.14. Okay. Yeah, 0.22, 0.1. Okay. Here are more examples of decimals. 0.24124, 2.16764, 1.2, 3.14, 124,125.0000004. Okay, so now we'll be discussing how to convert fractions to decimals. So I hope you can jot down notes so that you may write down important information. So the fraction to decimal conversion can be defined as a process of converting a number represented in form of p over q, where p and q belong to whole numbers and q is not equal to 0, into a decimal form by either converting the denominator to the power of 10 or by long division method. So any number which is represented in the fraction form is divided into two parts, the numerator and the denominator. So generally speaking, to convert a number from fraction to a decimal, we divide the numerator by the denominator. So fractions are represented in the form of p over q, right? Where q is not equal to 0. Where the decimal numbers are formed by connecting the whole number part and fractional part to a decimal point, for example, 7.575. Okay, so let's use the example of 77 over 80 to be converted. So to convert 77 over 80, we will divide the numerator by the denominator. So ano yung numerator sa problem na to? Sa example na to. Alright, 77, correct. And what is the denominator? 80, yes. So, if you divide 77 by 80, ano yung makukuha natin? Alright, correct. So, uh, The equivalent of the fraction 77 over 80 in decimal form is 0.9625. So thank you all for the responses. We'll have another example now. We'll use the given 12 over 16 to be converted. So to convert 12 over 16 into decimal, we'll divide the numerator 12 by the denominator 16. On dividing 12 by 16, we get 0.75. So same lang sila ng process. So now we are going to focus on converting decimals to fractions. So a decimal to fraction chart is used to perform quick calculations. It gives us the accurate value of decimal representation into P over Q form and vice versa. So fractions, decimal, and percents are numerical values that can be converted into each other using conversion methods. We will be learning about the decimal to fraction chart and the procedure to convert decimals to the corresponding fractions using solved examples. So here, pinapakita dito ang chart na magagamit natin para mas madali ang pag-convert. So anchor charts are used to make fractions and decimal conversion easier for students. Here's a chart of some commonly used fractions and their decimal equivalents. The fractions in the third column have been obtained after simplifying the fractions in the second column. So screenshot nyo to, chart na to. This might come in handy. Okay, on to the next. So here are the steps in converting. There are three simple steps to convert any decimal into a fraction. So step 1, place the decimal over 1 in the fraction format with a decimal in the numerator and 1 in the denominator like this. So decimal over 1. Keep that in mind. So for step 2, multiply both the denominator and the numerator by 10 for every digit after the decimal point. For instance, if there are 2 digits after the decimal point, then multiply by 100. If there are 3, then multiply by 1,000, etc. Ganun po. So dun tayo magre-rely kung ilan ang digit after the decimal point, kung saan siya mamultiply. And then step 3, simplify or reduce the fraction. The answer is expressed as a fraction in its lowest form. So, dapat ang sagot nyo lagi is naka-lowest form. So, eto, example. Let us use the process to convert the decimal 0.5 into a fraction. So, using the step 1, place the decimal over 1 in the fraction format, the decimal in the numerator 1 in the denominator like this, 0.5 over 1. And then step 2, multiply both the denominator and the numerator by 10 for every digit after the decimal point. Here, there is only one digit after the decimal point, so you multiply by 10. Since 0.5 lang siya, isa lang yung digit after the point. So 0.5 times 10 over 1 times 10. So we will get, ano ang makukuha natin? Okay, if we multiply both the numerator and denominator by 10, we will be getting 5 over 10. Okay, correct. So step 3, simplify or reduce the given fraction. So 5 over 10 can be simplified as 1 half. Thus, 0.5 is equal to 5 over 10 is equal to 1 over 5, 1 over 2, or 1 half. So here are the important notes on decimal to fractions chart. The fractions, decimal, and percent that are found in pie charts and bar charts are the numerical values of those bars and slices. So while working on data interpretation, in order to interpret both charts and pie charts, bar charts and pie charts, fraction to decimal charts can be used. So mas madali ang conversion if you know the chart. Okay, so on to the next topic. let's discuss operations with fractions. So doing calculations on fractions is different from doing the same on whole numbers. So let us understand the steps for performing the various mathematical operations on fractions in detail. So una natin is adding fractions. Before understanding how to add fractions, let us revise what numerator and denominator represent. So, i-review ko lang. The denominator represents the whole number of equal parts of the object. So, suppose I ask you to add 2 over 8 plus 3 over 8. How would you do it? Kindly comment your answer. Okay, 5 over 8. Paano nyo nakuha ang 5 over 8? Like, how ang process? I'm asking kung how ha? Okay, add both numerators. That is correct. So let us imagine a pizza with a total of 8 slices. 2 over 8 represents 2 slices out of 8, and 3 over 8 represents 3 slices out of 8. So if you add these, you will have 5 slices out of 8. Hence, 2 over 8 plus 3 over 8 is equal to 2 plus 3 over 8, which is 5 over 8. Yes. This is fairly simple. To add two or more fractions that have the same denominator, you will have to simply add the values in the numerator while keeping the denominator the same. So, tama yung mga sinabi nyo. Pero, paano naman kapag magkaiba ang denominators? So, this is a bit tricky, but very simple if you understand the concept. So, makinig ng mabuti. To add two or more fractions that have different denominators, you will first need to make the denominator across all fractions the same by finding the least common multiple of all denominators. So once you have found the LCM for each fraction, multiply the denominator with the multiplier so that the denominator becomes the LCM. At the same time, to keep the value of the fraction constant, you also need to convert them into equivalent fractions by multiplying the numerator of the fraction with the same multiplier. You repeat this operation for all the fractions so that all the fractions have the same denominator, and then you can add the fractions easily. So, for example, let us understand this example. Suppose we want to add 2 over 5 plus 3 over 4. Since these fractions have different denominators, we can't simply add the numerators. First, we have to convert the fractions so that they have the same denominator. The first step to do this is finding the LCM of 5 and 4. So the LCM of 5 and 4 is 20. We'll have to convert the fraction so that the denominator of the fraction becomes 20. So, ano ang step para gawing 20 ang denominator ng 2 over 5? Yun muna, 2 over 5. Ayan. Okay. Tama. So, if you multiply the numerator and denominator by 4, ano ang makukuha natin? So, what does 2 over 5 equate to? Mhm. Makukuha natin ay 8 over 20. Tama, correct. So, 2 over 5 is equal to 8 over 20. So, how about 3 over 4? Ano ang equivalent value ng 3 over 4? 15 over 20. Okay. Very good. So at the same time, we don't want to disturb the value of the fractions. We will multiply the individual numerators also with their respective multipliers. So in solving 2 over 5 plus yan ha, plus 3 over 4, 2 times 4 over 5 times 4 plus 3 times 5 over 4 times 5. So we will have, kaya nga ng sabi nyo, 8 over 20 plus 15 over 20. So we will add the numerators, 8 plus 15, and then we will get 23. So 23 over 20. Hence, 2 over 5 plus 3 over 4 is equal to 23 over 20 or 1 and 3 over 20. Good job, guys. Now, next naman, subtracting fractions. Now, since the addition of fractions is quite clear, subtracting fractions is very similar. If you want to subtract fractions with the same denominator, ano ang gagawin natin? Pwede, ano ha, pareho ang denominator. Ano ang gagawing process? Tama. So we will subtract the numerators and then copy the denominators. So let us refer to the example below. So 5 over 7 minus 1 over 7 is equal to 5 minus 1 over 7. Ang magiging sagot ng 5 minus 1 is 4. And then, ang magiging sagot natin for final answer is 4 over 7. Pakisabi kung masyadong mabilis ang discussion or tama lang ha. So, doon naman tayo kung paano nga ba natin isusubtract kapag magkaiba naman ang denominators. So, let us follow the same steps that we did for adding the fractions. In the last step, subtract the numerators. So, ayan. Let us use the example of 4 over 5 minus 1 over 2. 4 times 2 over 5 times 2 minus 1 times 5 over 2 times 5. We will get 8 over 10 minus 5 over 10. And ano ang equivalent niyan? 8 minus 5 over 10, which will be, so what's the final answer? Three over 10, correct. Nagagets ba ang addition and subtraction so far? Okay. So now, dito naman tayo sa multiplication. The multiplication of fractions is not like the addition or subtraction of fractions where the denominator should be the same. Here, any two fractions with different denominators can easily be multiplied. The only thing to be kept in mind is that the fractions should not be in mixed form. Ano nga ba ang mixed form? Can someone give an example of a mixed form of fraction? Two and one half. So if we convert 2 and 1/2 to become an improper fraction, ano ang magiging sagot? Ang 2 and 1/2 kapag improper fraction ay 5 and 5 over 2. Tama. So let us learn how to multiply fractions through the following steps. So step 1, multiply the numerators. Step 2, multiply the denominators. Step 3, reduce the resultant fraction to its lowest term. So let's understand these steps with the help of an example. So ang given natin is 1 over 3 times 3 over 5. If we, kung susundin natin ang steps, ano ang una nating gagawin? Anong una nating gagawin given? Okay, tama. Multiply 1 and 3. So we start by multiplying the numerators. In this case, it is 1 times 3, therefore it's 3. And then, following the step 2, anong ating gagawin na? Multiply both denominators. So in this case, the denominators are 3 and 5. So we will get 15. So ayun na ang ating sagot. This can be written as 3 over 15. So malalowest term pa ba siya? Ano ang lowest term ng 3 over 15? Tama, 1 over 5. Okay, so in here, ayan, nakikita natin uh, ang process on how to do this. So now reduce the value to it, this value to its lowest form. So 3 is the greatest common factor of 3 and 15. So divide both 3 and 15 by 3 to simplify the fraction. Therefore, 1 over 3 times 3 over 5 is equal to 1 over 5. So good job, guys. So here are the rules of multiplying fractions. While multiplying fractions, the following rules should be kept in mind. So rule 1, the first rule is to convert mixed fractions to improper fractions if any. Then, multiply the numerators to of the given fractions. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na dapat ang mixed fractions maging improper or proper. So rule number 2, multiply the denominators separately. And then rule 3, simplify the value obtained to its lowest term. So maraming nagkakamali dahil hindi siya nasi-simplify. So always simplify your answer. Baka kasi hanapin nyo ay mas malaking value sa given sa choices if may exam and then mamamali kayo. Kasi yun na yun na determine na meron pa palang lowest term. So next naman is the division of fractions. So the method to divide fractions follow the same steps as multiplying fractions, but with only one additional step. This additional step is to convert the divide fraction operation into a multiplication operation. This is done by exchanging the numerator and denominator of the second fraction in a divide operation. Take for example, the example below. Okay, so ang given natin is 2 over 5 divided by 5 over 8. To solve this example, we'll replace the numerator and denominator of the second fraction. So, ibig sabihin lang nun is i-reciprocate natin. Replacing the division symbol with multiplication, solving the equation as a multiplication operation. So, ang mangyayari is, paano? You will multiply 2 times 8 over 5 times 5. So, ano ang 2 times 8? What is 2 times 8, guys? Okay, 16. How about 5 times 5? So ano ang magiging sagot? Ay, wait lang. Mayroon atang correction here. Let me just recheck. Ay, hindi. Tama, tama. So, remember the given ba? Ang given ba natin ay 2 over 5 divided by 8 over 5? Yes or no? No. So, ano ang given natin? Bakit naging 2 over 5 divided by 8 over 5 yung nasa presentation? Ano ang given and then ano ang ginawa natin kung bakit naging 8 over 5? Okay, tama. Okay. So, since nabigay niyo na yung answer, which is 16 over 25. Good job, good job. So, next naman, dito naman tayo sa operations with decimals. So, tapos na tayo sa operations with fractions. Nagets ba? Lahat ng operations with fractions? Or merong kailangang i-review? Yes, okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's proceed with the addition of decimals. So the addition of decimals is done by starting from the right-hand side and then move on to the left, adding each column. For example, let's add 12.5 plus 14.9 using the following steps. So step 1, write the numbers one below the other such as they are aligned as per their place values and the decimal point is placed one below the other. So kindly pakisundan to while writing down. Make sure na aligned. And then comment 1, the number 1, after. Kung nagawa na. Ayan. So now, step 2, add decimal numbers to get the sum. So let us add 9 plus 5 is equal to 14. Tama. So ilalagay na natin sa baba ang 4 and then we'll carry 1. 2 plus 4 is 6 plus 1 since meron tayong remainder ay meron tayong kinary. It will be 7. Correct. So we will place 7 back. And then for the last, 1 plus 1 is 2. So, ang gagawin na lang natin ngayon is ibababa natin ang decimal point. So, ano ang final answer? 27.4, correct. So now, next naman is subtraction of decimals. Ay, wait. Nakuha ba ang addition? Okay, okay. So now subtraction of decimals. The subtraction of decimals is done in the same way as the subtraction of whole numbers. We just need to write the numbers correctly according to their place values. For example, subtract the given decimals, 15.8 minus 2.7. So pakisulat ulito, and then let's solve together. Type 1 kapag nasulat na. Di ba gumagalaw yung ano? Ayan. Kapag guys hindi gumagalaw yung screen, pakisabihan ako para maayos natin agad. If like ibang topic na yung pinag-uusapan and then okay. 1. Okay, so ano ang una nating gagawin? From the right to the left. So 8 minus 7 is 1. Yes. And then 5 minus 2 is 3. And then ang 1 wala na natira, so we will bring that down. So ano ang final answer? 13.1. Correct. So let's check. Ayan. Copy to decimal as it comes. In this case, 15.8 minus 2.7 is equal to 13.1. So nagets ba? Wag ang wag lang kalimutan ay ang decimal point ha. Laging naka-align yan. Nagets ba guys? Okay. So next na tayo. Now, multiplication of decimals naman. So this section will help you learn about the multiplication of two decimal numbers. It's the same as that of a whole number. But the only difference is that in this, we have to take the sum of the total number of decimal places in both the given numbers, and that needs to be equal to the number of decimal places in the product. To multiply two decimals, follow the steps listed below, which is the next slide pala. So step 1, initially, ignore the decimal point and multiply the two numbers normally. So wag muna natin isipin masyado ang decimal point. So after multiplication, count the total number of decimal places in both the numbers. The product obtained after multiplication will have this total number of decimal places. So for example, you will multiply 0.1 times 0.1. So ang product nun, ilan ang decimal places? Ilan ang decimal places ng product if you multiply 0.1 times 0.1? Isa lang ba? Tatlo? Lima? Ilan? Okay, dalawa. Correct, correct. Bakit? Kasi ang pinag-add natin ay may tig-isang digit after the decimal point. So therefore, 2 decimal places ang sa product niya. So for example, let us multiply 0.567 and 13.065. So ilan ang decimal places ng lahat? Tig-ilan sila? Tig-ilan ang decimal places ang given natin? 6. So kung napapansin nyo, yung product natin, 6 decimal places. The multiplication of decimals is para lang talaga siyang whole number. Pero ayun nga, we have to keep this in mind, yung decimal places. And therefore, 0.57 times 13.065 is equal to 7.407855. And wag nyong ilo-lowest, like i-estimate or round off unless hiningi. Na round off to the nearest tens, or round off to the nearest hundreds. If hindi hiningi, wag. Okay? Kasi ma-change yung value. So, nagets ba ang multiplication? Okay. So now, operations with decimals, division of decimals naman tayo. In dividing decimals, it is similar to dividing whole numbers, keeping in mind the position of the decimal point. While dividing decimal numbers, we need to follow a certain set of rules, but basic process of division remains the same. For dividing decimals by another decimal, we need to convert the divisor into a whole number and then continue the division. So keep that in mind. Kapag magdi-divide tayo ng decimals, kung pareho silang decimal, dapat ang divisor ay magiging whole number. So paano yun gagawin? Ganito. So kung i-divide natin ang 48.65 by 3.5, makikita natin na ang divisor ay isang decimal. Meron siyang decimal. So, sabi nga kanina, dapat whole number ang ating divisor. Therefore, pwede nating i-move yung decimal point until the divisor becomes a whole number. So, hindi lang natin siya gagawin dun sa divisor, isasama din natin yung dividend. So, for in this context, 3.5, may siyang 35, isang move lang. So, ang 48.65, magiging 486.5 na siya. And then we continue to divide. So for 48 divided by 35 is 1. Kaya mayroong 1 sa taas. And then 1 times 35 is 35. 48 minus 35 is 30. And then i-bring down na natin yung 6. So ilang 35 ang nasa 136? So tatlo. Then 3 times 35 is equal to 105. So isusubtract ulit natin. Therefore, we'll have 31. So, ibababa natin ang final digit, which is 5. So, we will have 315. Ilan ang 35 at 15? So, 9. 9 times 35 is 315. So, subtract natin hanggang sa maging 0 na siya. Therefore, ang answer natin is, ano ang final answer natin? 13.9. Okay. Nakakasunod. So, ito lang ang explanation. So step 1, the dividend is 48.65 and the divisor is 3.5. We need to change the divisor to a whole number so that we will multiply it by 10 so that the decimal point shifts to the right and it becomes a whole number. This means 3.5 divided by multiplied by 10 is 35. So step 2, we need to treat the dividend the same way as we had treated the divisor. So we will multiply the dividend by 10 as well. This means that 48.65 will be 486.5. So in other words, you need to move both decimal points to the right until the divisor becomes a whole number. And then step 3, now we have 486.5 as the dividend and 35 as the divisor. This can be divided as we do the usual division and we get 13.9 as the quotient. So tama ang sagot. So next naman is converting repeating decimals to fraction. So repeating or recurring decimals are those decimal expansions that do not terminate or end after a specific number of digits. So meron bang kayo makapagbigay ng example ng repeating decimals? Chat na lang. Ayan, 0.555 bar. Okay. So it's nice na alam ng karamihan or all ang repeating decimal. So generally, decimal numbers can be converted to fractions by dividing the number of with the power of 10, which is equal to the number of decimal places. For example, 1.5 is equal to 15 over 10 is equal to 3 over 2, but with repeating decimals. So paano nga ba natin yun gagawin? It is impossible to count the number of decimal places as it is infinite. So there are some specific steps to be followed to convert repeating decimal to fraction. The repeating decimal to fraction steps of conversion are given below. So step 1, identify the repeating digits in the given decimal number. And then step 2, evaluate the decimal number with x or any other variable. So we will be using x. Step 3, place the repeating digits to the left of the decimal point by multiplying the equation obtained in step 2 by a power of 10 equal to the number of repeating digits. This way, you will get another equation. So step 4, subtract the equation obtained in step 2 from the equation obtained in step 3. Step 5 is simplified to get the answer. So, medyo nakakalito siya. So, let's take an example to understand the conversion of repeating decimal to fraction in a better way. Let us convert 0.777 bar to a fraction. So step 1, we can observe that 7 is repetitive in the given decimal number. So let x be 0.7777 bar. So step 3, there's only one repetitive digit, so multiply this equation by 10. So nakabase kung ilang digits ang i-multiply natin. So when we get 10x is equal to 7.777 bar. So step 4, subtract x, which is 0.777 bar from 10x, which equal to 7.77 bar. We will get 9x is equal to 7. So step 5, x is equal to 7 over 9. Therefore, 0.77 bar is equal to 7 over 9. Nagigets ba? Or masyadong confusing? Gets ba siya, guys? Or ulitin? Sabihin lang kasi we have time naman. Ulit? Okay. So ulit. We will still use 0.7 ay hindi, gagamitin ng other example. Ayan. We will now use a multi-digit repeating decimal. So let us convert 3.989898 bar to a fraction. Yeah, it's very confusing nga. So the repeating digits in a given decimal number are 98. So gaya ng sabi sa steps, let x be 3.989898. So generally speaking, ang x ay ang iko-convert nating decimal ay gagawin nating equivalent to x para makuha natin kung ano ang equivalent niya kapag ginawang fraction. Nakakasunod? Okay. So ayun nga, since there are two repeating digits, multiply the above equation by 100. Bakit 100? Kasi dalawa yung repeating digits. So kung maalala nyo, sa past na example natin, isa lang ang repeating digit, kaya sa 10 lang siya minultiply. Nakakasunod ba? Okay. So if you multiply 3.989898 bar by 100, yung x is equal to 3.989898 bar, yun po ang ating i-multiply by 100 ha. Kasama po ang variable na x. Okay? So 100x is equal to 398.989898. Right? Kasi multiply natin siya sa 100. So para ma-move lang ang decimal places. And then, step 4 na, we have to subtract x from 100x para makuha natin ang 99x, para makakuha tayo ng equivalent fraction niya. So, 100x, which is 398.989898 minus 3.989898 is, we will get 395. Bakit? Yung we just have to subtract. Kapag binawasan ng isang x ang 100x, it will be 99x. So ang 99x natin is 395. Ang step 5 natin is x is equal to 395 over 99. Bakit nagkaroon ng over 99 at bakit x na lang? Kasi para makuha natin ang value ng x, i-divide natin by 99. So, kapag 99x over 99, maka-cross out ang 99, and then sa other side, mananatili. Yes, divide both sides. So, therefore, 3.989898 bar is equivalent to 395 over 99. Gets na ba? Okay. So, if ever meron pa siyang lowest term, you should convert it into lowest term. Pero kung wala na, let it, na lang. Hayaan na. Okay. So, ang next naman nating lesson is comparing and ordering fractions. So comparing fractions means determining the larger and the smaller fraction between any two or more fractions. Since fractions are made up of two parts, a numerator and a denominator, they are compared using a certain set of rules. So meron kasi neto sa sets, kaya ito ang ating focus. Comparing fractions involves a set of rules related to the numerator and the denominator. When any two fractions are compared, we get to know the greater and the smaller fraction. We need to compare fractions in our everyday lives. So for comparing fractions with unlike denominators, we need to convert them to like denominators, for which we should find the least common multiple of the denominators. When the denominators are made the same, we can compare the fractions easily. For example, let us compare 1/2 and 2 over 5. So observe the denominators of the given fractions. 1/2 and 2 over 5. Pareho lang ba ang denominators nila or different? Different. Okay. So, ang kailangan natin gawin is hahanapin natin ang least common multiple nila, which is, ano ang least common multiple ng 2 and 5? 10. Okay. So, step 2, now let us convert them in such a way that the denominators become the same. So, let us multiply the first fraction with 5 over 5, that is 1/2, multiplied by 5 over 5, which is now, ano na ang sagot? Ano na ang equivalent na fraction ng 1/2? Kung ang denominator niya is 10 dapat. 5 over 10, tama. Okay, now, yung second fraction naman, same step, ano na ang magiging sagot? 4 over 10. Okay. So now, it is easier for us to compare the fractions since pareho na nga sila ng denominator. Malalaman natin agad kung ano ang greater at kung ano ang least. So, ano ang greater? 5 or 4? 5 over 10 or 4 over 10? Use the symbol. Kung gagamitin natin ng symbol, paano siya? Like yung buo of comparing. Symbol of pag-compare. Ayan. Wait, ano ko lang? I-show ko lang yung sagot. Ganyan dapat ang answer. 5 over 10 is greater than 4 over 10. Okay. So, ayan. Step 5. The fraction in the larger number is the larger fraction. That is 5 over 10 is greater than 4 over 10. Therefore, ano sinimulan nating fraction, yun dapat ang gagamitin natin kasi hindi dapat siya ang converted. So, ano ang final answer? 1/2 is greater than 2 over 5. Correct. So, it should be noted that if the denominators are different and the numerators are the same, then we can easily compare fractions by looking at their denominators. So, naintindihan ba? Yes, okay. So here are some reminders lang. So this presentation and the worksheets will be posted shortly. Please do not disseminate any copies of our materials without permission. So um hindi ako magbibigay ng quiz. I will only be giving a worksheet na pwede niyong sagutan if you want. Uh Ipo-post siya mamaya, naka-scheduled siya na ma-post later, 6 PM. So, it is not required, pero it's highly encouraged to answer. So, ayun lang. Pati itong presentation ipo-post later. Okay, so that's the end of mathematics day 1. I hope na may natutunan kayo, and if meron man, please answer the feedback form which is posted sa ating Google Classroom. That's all for today, guys. Thank you. Note lang pala na hindi po matutuloy ang general information for later since merong urgent matter ang ating lecturer. So, baka ma-reschedule na lang yon. We will be announcing about it sa Google Classroom pa rin or sa mga GCs. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for actively participating. I will now be ending the live.